Jericho. Night on the stones, a city sure of itself. Then came footsteps, and a name carried on silence.
We marched in dust around their pride, the ark before, the warriors behind. 7 horns a sleeping priest hands.
Stone listened, heaven counted. Blow.
Jericho learns the name out loud.
Blow
the horns. Stone turns dust beneath our feet.
the horns.
Falls to fame.
600,000 people watched stone walls that stood for centuries turn to dust in seconds at Jericho. And not one person could explain how. No catapults, no earthquakes, just the impossible.
We watch the circle
Love is behind.
7 days of silence.
7 trumpets sounded.
The earth trembled, the walls obeyed.
Israel's army circled the city once each day for 6 days in absolute silence.
Jericho has fallen.
Then 7 times on day 7. Those 40-foot walls had never been breached, holding enough supplies for a 5-year siege. The defenders laughed the first day, worried by day 3, and trembled by day 6 as ram's horns echoed off their doomed walls. When 40,000 voices finally broke their silence with one coordinated shout, stone that had stood 400 years liquefied, we'll reveal what really destroyed Jericho, showing you the moment heaven's army made those walls. Remember, they were just dust. 600,000 slaves watched Egypt burn behind them. The blood wasn't dry on their doorposts. Their sandals still carried Pharaoh's mud. Now they faced sand that would kill the weak and forge the strong into something unbreakable. The desert struck first.
Scorching sun, but still they walk.
3 days without water. Children's lips cracked like dried clay. Mothers squeezed their babies tighter, feeling them wither. Moses struck a rock with his staff. Water exploded out, enough to drown in. They drank, but doubt had already poisoned their hearts. At Kadesh, the real test came. 12 spies crossed into Canaan. 40 days later, 10 returned carrying grapes so massive it took 2 men to lift one cluster, but their faces showed terror. Giants lived there. Cities with walls that touched clouds. The spies' report split the camp in two.
God drowned Pharaoh's army. You think he fears tall men?
We'll die. Our children will be slaves.
Silence! God is speaking!
40 years you'll wander. 1 year for each day they searched. Everyone over 20 dies before seeing my promise.
No! We believe now!
Too late. Your children will inherit what you rejected.
That night began the dying. Not all at once, that would be mercy. One by one, funeral by funeral, the desert became a graveyard that moved. But also a womb birthing warriors. Watch the transformation unfold. Year 1 through 10, the complainers started dropping. Plague here, snakebite there. The ground split open beneath Korah's feet. A crack became a canyon in 3 heartbeats. 250 rebels fell into darkness, their bodies tumbling into Earth's stomach. The ground slammed shut like massive jaws, leaving only smooth sand where men had stood. Every death taught the same lesson: obey or be erased. Year 11 through 20, miracles became breakfast. Manna every morning tasting like honey wafers. Quail when they craved meat. Water bursting from rocks whenever they thirsted. Cloud shade protecting from sun that could kill in hours. Fire warmth protecting from cold that froze blood. Their shoes never wore out. Their clothes never tore. The desert that should have destroyed them was preserving them like they were holy relics. Year 21 through 30. The old generation died one funeral at a time, graves marking their path through sand. The young generation grew stronger with each burial, their soft Egyptian skin becoming leather, their slave posture becoming soldier stance. Children born in sand knew no fear. They'd seen seas split, Enemies scattered without battles. Food fall from empty skies. Their normal was everyone else's impossible. Year 31 through 40, only Joshua and Caleb remained from Egypt, the two spies who'd believed. The rest, desert-born, desert-trained, desert-hardened. They didn't know slavery's weight. They knew victory's taste. They'd grown up watching God kill doubters and save believers. Daily, visibly, undeniably. The final year arrived like thunder before storm. Moses counted the people again, still 600,000. But different, stronger. These ones would march in silence for days if ordered. These ones would shout down stone walls on command. Their faith had been forged in 40 years of impossible survival. Jericho waded across the Jordan River, confident in its walls. Jericho's walls had one job: make armies quit before they started. 40 feet of stone rising from earth like the world's biggest tombstone. These walls had murdered hope for 4 centuries straight. The numbers alone broke commanders' spirits. Outer wall, 20 feet thick, built from stones heavier than horses. Inner wall, 15 feet thick.
Shadows rise, fortress strong against the skies.
Rooms built inside where soldiers lived.
Walls of fire, shadows
The death trap between them. 30 feet of killing ground where defenders rained spears.
against the sky.
Arrows, rocks, boiling oil on anyone trapped below. The bronze gate weighed more than 10 horses. When it locked, it fused with the walls, becoming one solid, impenetrable fortress. Here's what made generals abandon sieges. Jericho could see armies coming 3 days away. By the time you arrived, they'd poisoned every well for miles, burned every field, destroyed every shelter. Nothing but dust and death waited outside those walls. Inside, different story. 5 years of grain stored in silos deep as graves. Water cisterns that never emptied, fed by underground springs. Weapons stolen from every army that had failed. Egyptian swords. Babylonian spears. Hittite shields mounted on walls like trophies.
The desert rats are camping across the Jordan.
The spring floods will drown half if they try crossing.
They have no siege weapons, no boats, nothing but stories about their god.
Stories don't break stones that have stood 400 years.
Every morning, priests poured blood on the foundations. Bull's blood, ram's blood, sometimes enemy blood. They believed the walls were alive, fed by death, strengthened by sacrifice. At night, you could hear them humming, stones digesting their daily feeding, growing stronger with each offering. The city had become its own god. Markets sold miniature clay walls for home worship. Children sang songs about the fortress that never fell. Mothers told babies that these walls would outlive the stars themselves. Everyone believed it because everyone saw proof. Four centuries of unbroken victory. 20 empires had tried. 20 empires had failed. Pharaoh's cousins lay buried in that sand. Babylon's merchants never made it past the gates. Assyria's scouts never even returned home. But Israel had something Jericho couldn't understand. They had practiced believing impossible things. They'd eaten bread that materialized from nothing, drunk water that burst from solid rock, walked through seas that stood like walls, walls of water that obeyed, unlike walls of stone that rebelled against God's plan. The spring floods were raging when Israel reached the Jordan River. Water ran violent enough to tear trees from their roots, carrying boulders like pebbles. Jericho's watchmen gathered on the walls to witness the drowning they'd seen so many times before. Instead, they watched the river stop. Stop completely, like someone had turned off the universe's faucet. 600,000 people walked across on dust that should have been riverbed mud. The impossible had arrived at Jericho's gates. The watchmen's laughter died in their throats. The walls had never faced an enemy who could stop rivers. Midnight. Two Hebrew spies slipped through Jericho's gates like smoke through fingers.
Two spies. A city.
Guards were counting gold from frightened merchants, too distracted by profit to notice shadows that would change their fate. The city reeked of fear sweat mixed with temple incense. Every corner buzzed with panicked whispers about the desert army that walked through rivers.
Falls of Jericho, shadows in the night.
The spies needed shelter fast. Their Hebrew accents would get them killed before they could count to 3. They picked a house built into the wall itself, perfect for escape.
Hidden inside a
The woman who opened the door was already expecting them. Her name was Rahab. She knew exactly who they were and what they wanted. While other citizens trusted in stone walls, she'd been listening to merchant stories for years. The Red Sea, splitting down the middle. Egypt's firstborn sons dropping dead at midnight. Armies fleeing from shepherds who carried no weapons except faith. Her gods had never moved, never spoken, never saved anyone. These Hebrews served a God who rewrote the rules of nature daily.
Your God parted the Jordan today. The whole city saw it. Get inside.
Why would you help us?
Because your God is real. He does impossible things. Our gods are stone.
You know what happens to traitors here.
I know what happens to cities that fight your God. They become dust.
Two spies. A city. A secret.
walls of Jericho.
Within an hour, soldiers pounded on her door.
Shadows in the night.
Rahab had hidden the spies under flax stalks on her roof.
Steps in
The flax still smelled of river water, perfect cover for men who'd just crossed rivers. The soldiers searched her house, threatened her life,
Her house of stone. Whispers
promised rewards for information. She lied with the calmness of someone who'd already chosen her side. After the soldiers thundered away chasing phantoms, Rahab climbed to her roof. The moon lit up Jericho below. Stone walls that everyone trusted. Stone gods that never moved. Stone hearts that would soon stop beating. She had minutes before the soldiers realized her deception and returned.
Everyone here lives in terror. We heard what your God did to the Amorite kings.
Yet, your walls still stand.
Not for long. When they fall, and they will fall, save my family. Swear it.
Hang a scarlet cord from this window. Anyone inside this house lives.
She gave them rope to escape down the wall. Told them where to hide for 3 days until the search parties gave up. The scarlet cord went up immediately. Let the neighbors wonder, let them mock. She'd chosen the winning side before the war even started. The spies vanished into darkness, carrying intelligence that would change Joshua's entire strategy. Not about wall thickness or troop numbers, about fear. Jericho was already defeated in their hearts. The walls might be stone, but the people inside had turned to water. Rahab's faith had opened a door in Jericho's perfect defenses. Not a physical door, something far more dangerous. Hope had entered the city. Hope that mercy was possible for anyone who chose the right side. The scarlet cord glowed in moonlight against gray stone. Faith had marked its territory. Day one shattered every rule of warfare ever written. 40,000 soldiers circled Jericho in absolute silence. Not whispers, not murmurs, silence thick enough to choke on.
They march.
They march.
The formation made no military sense. 7 priests with ram's horns led the procession.
One step. Another. The silence louder than war.
Behind them, priests carried the Ark of the Covenant, God's golden throne. Then came the soldiers, silent soldiers with weapons sheathed.
Psychological war.
Eyes forward, mouths sealed like tombs. One complete circle around the city. Then they left. The defenders stood frozen on the walls. Arrows knocked, but never fired.
Walls trembling.
What did you shoot at? Men walking? The only sounds were footsteps hitting dirt and ram's horns that seemed to vibrate through the stones themselves.
Of psychological warfare. Silence.
The tone wasn't loud. It was deep, like something massive breathing just below the Earth's surface.
What in Baal's name was that?
Psychological warfare, sir. They want us confused.
Tomorrow they'll bring ladders. They have to.
What if they don't?
Day 2, same march, same silence, same horns that seemed to ask the stones questions nobody could understand. The defenders' nervous laughter died. Something was wrong, fundamentally wrong.
Silence.
An army that doesn't threaten is more threatening than one that screams for blood. Day 3 broke something inside Jericho's collective mind.
Heartbeat. Fear has an ear. They march. They march. Only horns. One step.
Mothers pulled children from windows.
Another.
Merchants stopped pretending to sell goods nobody was buying. The silence from Israel's army was spreading like disease through the streets. Even Jericho's defenders stopped talking, just watching this bizarre parade that made no sense, but felt deeply threatening.
Let's see in heaven.
By day 4, the stones themselves seemed to tremble. Not from the marching, from something underneath, something in the foundations. Like the earth was choosing sides.
Release.
Dogs howled when the horn sounded. Horses pulled against their ropes until they bled. The ground felt different when 40,000 feet marched in perfect unison. Everyone could feel it. Countdown. This was countdown to something. Day 5 brought mass hysteria.
Fear consuming.
People pressed against windows, unable to look away from the daily circle.
The silent march of psychological warfare.
They'd prepared for war, not this suffocating psychological torture.
Silent march.
The ram's horns had gotten inside their heads.
Of psychological.
That endless, patient march. Those silent soldiers who looked at the walls like they were already fallen. That golden box that seemed to pulse with invisible power.
Make them stop! Make them stop!
Open the gates! We surrender!
Our gods will save us.
Silent.
Your gods are statues. Their god is alive.
Day 6. Nobody in Jericho slept anymore. Birds fled the city. Rats abandoned their nests. Even insects seemed to evacuate. The horns weren't just sound now, they were prophecy. Everyone knew it. 7. Everything was 7 with these Hebrews. 7 priests. 7 horns. 7 days. Tomorrow would be 7. The defenders' hands shook on their weapons. They'd prepared for siege engines, not this. They'd prepared for battle cries, not silence. They'd prepared to die fighting, not to die waiting. Rahab gathered her family inside her marked house. She knew tomorrow the silence would end. And when it did, those 40-foot walls would discover they were just organized dust pretending to be permanent. Joshua sharpened his sword in Israel's camp. Tomorrow they would shout. Dawn broke different on day 7. Joshua had met someone in the darkness, the commander of heaven's army, not metaphorical, real. "10 feet tall, armor like lightning, sword made of fire that didn't burn." This warrior didn't come to help Israel. He came to lead heaven's invasion of earth. The walls were already fallen in heaven's reality. Earth just needed to catch up. Israel's army rose before the sun, moving like death itself walking. They started marching while Jericho's guards were still changing shifts. No explanation given, no warning shouted, just movement with terrible purpose. First circuit. The defenders noticed immediately. Earlier start, hungrier pace, different energy. The horn sounded angrier. The marching felt heavier. Something fundamental had shifted overnight. Second circuit. No return to camp. They kept walking. The realization hit Jericho like cold water. This was it. Today was different. Today was the end. Panic seized the city like hands around a throat. Third circuit. The ground began cracking. Not little cracks, wounds in the earth wide enough to swallow feet. The foundations groaned like something enormous waking up beneath them. Every stone in those 40-foot walls began vibrating at a frequency too low to hear, but impossible to ignore.
The gods aren't responding. Then kill more bulls. Kill them all.
Blood covers everything. The gods give no answer.
Make them answer.
Stone doesn't speak. Stone doesn't save.
Fourth circuit. Animals went insane. Horses kicked down stalls strong enough to hold bulls. Dogs bit their owners and ran. Cattle broke through gates. Every living thing with instincts intact tried to flee. The humans, trapped by their walls, could only watch the circle tighten. Fifth circuit. The Ark of the Covenant started glowing, not reflecting sunlight, generating its own light, pulsing like a heartbeat made of pure power. The ram's horns weren't making music anymore. They were making prophecy, declaring that stone would become powder, that height would become depth, that strength would become weakness. Sixth circuit. Even the air changed. It grew thick, hard to breathe, like before a storm that breaks the world. Children clung to their mothers. Grown men wet themselves. The silence from Israel's army was more terrifying than any battle cry. They walked like executioners who knew the verdict was already decided. Seventh Circuit completed. The moment arrived, like thunder after lightning. Inevitable, unstoppable. Joshua raised his sword. The blade burst into those same strange flames he'd seen on the commander's weapon. Every Hebrew warrior tensed. 6 days of silence had built up behind 40,000 throats, like water behind a dam about to break. The priests gave one long final blast on the ram's horns. The note seemed to crack the sky itself open, revealing something behind reality's curtain. Heaven's army was positioned, millions of angels ready to add their voices. The walls didn't know it yet, but they were already dust. Joshua's burning sword fell.
The Lord has given us Jericho!
40,000 human voices became 40 million as heaven joined the shout. The sound hit Jericho's walls like the fist of God himself. Windows exploded into powder. Soldiers fell to their knees, hands over ears that would never stop ringing. But that was just the beginning. The shout hit a sound that made stone remember it was dust. The same sound that shattered mountains in ancient floods. Every brick vibrated loose from its neighbor. Mortar turned to powder. 400 years of construction became 4 seconds of collapse. 400 years of standing strong discovered they were just pride made of mud, rebellion shaped into stone. Cracks appeared. Spiderweb fractures racing up 40 feet in heartbeats. The outer wall split first, then the inner wall, both crying out like living things dying. The cracks widened into canyons. Chunks of stone bigger than houses began falling, but not inward, outward. Every section collapsed outward simultaneously, creating perfect ramps for Israel's army to charge straight up. Physics bent to heaven's will. Only one section remained standing, a house built into the wall with a scarlet cord hanging from its window. Rahab's house. Her faith had made her wall stronger than stone could ever be. The battle lasted minutes. Jericho's soldiers threw down weapons and begged for mercy that wouldn't come. God had marked this city for complete destruction. Their child sacrifices to Molech, their temple disrespect, their violence against travelers. 4 centuries of evil ended in one afternoon. Every breathing thing died except Rahab's family. Jericho's evil had poisoned the land for 4 centuries. The cure required complete removal. Everything that breathed died except Rahab's family. Men, women, children, animals, all of it ended. The king was absolute.
Your faith saved you. You're Israel now.
From harlot to prophet. Only your God does impossible things.
Our God. He's yours now too.
Fire consumed Jericho before sunset. The smoke rose black and thick, a pillar visible for 50 miles in every direction. Every king from the Great Sea to the Jordan River saw it and understood the message. The impossible had happened. Jericho, the unconquerable fortress, had fallen in a single day. No siege weapons, no military genius, just obedience, faith, and a shout that made heaven and earth agree. Joshua stood where the gates used to be, now just melted bronze pooling in dirt. His soldiers walked over flattened walls, carrying gold, silver, bronze for God's tabernacle. No one took personal plunder. This victory belonged entirely to God, not men. The news spread faster than fire in dry grass. Cities that had laughed at Israel's approach now trembled. Walls that had stood for centuries suddenly looked fragile. Kings who had trusted in stone fortresses realized they'd been trusting in dust. The God who could stop rivers and flatten walls with a shout had arrived in Canaan. I would fall next. Then Hazor. Then all of Canaan. Every fortress would learn the same lesson Jericho learned today. When heaven decides to invade earth, no wall is high enough, thick enough, or strong enough to stop it. The conquest of Canaan had begun. The impossible had become inevitable. Jericho's walls thought they were permanent. They learned otherwise. But before any earthly fortress fell, before any human rebelled, the greatest fall in history shook heaven itself. Watch the morning star, God's most beautiful angel, transform into humanity's darkest enemy. Witness the war that split heaven's armies. See how one moment of pride birthed every evil we know. Lucifer's Fall 2025, the cosmic battle that started everything. Click on the video being displayed on your end screen now.